The Pacific Remote Islands Marine National Monument was founded in 2009 and then expanded in 2014. Jarvis Island was one of those units, and that's where we've been working over the last couple of days. Jarvis Island is about 1,000 miles south of Hawaii and just west of the Line Islands.
I think it earns the name remote.
We are very far from the closest point of land or the closest major city, so some of the things that we've been looking at here have just been spectacularly pristine and beautiful because there's not really much out here besides wonderful wildlife. Prior to the Okeanos Explorer missions, there was very little mapping data, and there had been no ROV dives conducted in this area. So, in the last couple days, we've conducted 5 dives, which are the only ROV exploration that's ever been done here, which is pretty exciting.
That is very cool.
The program here has essentially taken an area which we knew, I think it's safe to say, barely anything about, and we mapped all these totally unknown seamounts. One of the striking things that we found were that these seamounts look very different than what the altimetry and the satellite data suggested. This one was about 1 kilometer higher than we expected it to be. And we mapped right over the top of these 3 seamounts in the middle, and you can see peak, but then flat on top here. That tells us maybe they formed at some different times or different ways, or that maybe there are some different biological communities living on them. So we are building exploration from the ground up, and we are exploring on many scales, from hundreds of miles down to fractions of an inch.
I've actually really been impressed with the variety of things we can still see even in these very old terrains. Many of these seamounts are old volcanoes. They might have formed, 70 million years ago. All the rocks, of course, have this thick manganese crust on them, but we've been able really to see some clear volcanic features. And of course, we saw spectacular carbonate geology at Jarvis, just covered with different types of biology, giving all these different habitats. So there's this record of these things that went on tens of billions of years ago that we can go down with the ROV and look at today, which is just amazing.
My first note about Jarvis is amazing in all caps, and I think that everybody said the same sort of thing. It was just kind of stunning. One of the first things we saw was a ledge and just bursting with color. There was beautiful yellows and reds and purple ribbon corals. We'd all be stunned by the biology we were seeing, the sheer abundance of stuff, the density of stuff, and then suddenly we'd see something even more amazing. One of the things that we all got very excited about was a trio of brittle stars that managed somehow to nab a squid. That was just incredible. We saw these ledges that were packed with sea urchins. Then crinoids took over, and all kinds of feather stars and brittle stars and other organisms. The sea cucumbers, the likes of which I'd never seen before, and then we saw hundreds of them. And then we came to fields of these colorful sea fans, and stony corals, and sponges, and definitely high densities in lots of places, which means that the abundance of animals is much, much higher. So if we're thinking about these monument areas and areas that may be of interest for future resource extraction, it makes more sense to try to protect an area that has lots of individuals, especially if there's a high diversity. We want to have lots of different kinds of species. Let's make sure that we're protecting the right area of the seafloor, the part that has literally thousands and thousands of animals. The dives culminated in the spectacular Technicolor tableau. I mean, we were all gobsmacked. That was just so incredible, so beautiful just to look at. When we got close to it, it was just an incredible community of density and diversity, all right there on the small scale. And so to me, it was kind of at a small scale exactly what we're looking for on the big scale.
So there's a lot of life down there, and these places where you might not expect it.
Just incredible. It'd be wonderful to come back here and do some more hypothesis-driven science.
My hypothesis when we first started this trip was that we were going to leave with more questions than we came with.
Absolutely. I think that's true.
One of the missions here of our work in Jarvis is really to provide some information about how we might manage these areas. And it's really hard to come up with a plan for how to manage something we don't know what's there. And so we're really laying down the first baseline information at these sites about the geology and the biology. And and we'll be able to track this baseline going forward.
We know a lot about the waters right next to our shorelines, but we're way out here in the middle of the ocean. It's an important part of the planet. It's a vast environment, the Pacific Ocean, and yet we don't know what's going on down below the surface of the water. And so to me, that's one of the importance of getting there, to be able to get the initial data, to even know what are the questions we need to ask.